Welcome back. You're watching The Nation. I'm Jason Wee. Now, when we talk about palm oil, we think about a key pillar in Malaysia's national economy. We are the second largest exporter in the world that supports rural development and growth in Malaysia today. However, amid global changes and market volatility, how will palm oil stand to the changes in 2026? Joining me in the studio today is Dr. AHMAD PARVEEZ, GHULAM KADIR, the Director General of the Malaysian Palm Oil Board. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio today. Now, I want to kick us off talking about the industry performance and outlook for 2026. Now, here we have MPOB is projecting that crude palm oil production is at around 19.5 to 19.8 million tons for 2026. That is a slight decrease from last year's number. Can you walk me through what's happening and what is pulling those figures down in terms of our projection for palm oil production?
Thank you. Assalamualaikum and very good afternoon. Of course, I think, Alhamdulillah, last year we have break the record where we produced 20.28 million ton of crude palm oil. Which is, I think, the historical highest. But when we make the projection for 2026, we make a projection of around 19.5 to 19.8. It's just because that we have to see that, last year was extraordinary. And I think it also shows a very exceptionally strong performance. But we must also remember that, it's also maybe it also reflect the projection for 2026 also reflect that the natural biological adjustment, as well as it's not what we call to show a slowdown, whatnot, but basically we want to be more practical and also more what we call most accurate to our expectation. And I think, Alhamdulillah, last year our planted area have increased from 5.67 to around 5.7 million hectare last year, and we are still within the cap of 6.5 million hectare that we have pledged in 2019. So what's important, I think, the performance last year was due to the improved labour situation and whatnot. And also, I think currently we have to see that for this year, that means we are also encouraging a lot of replanting. And I think last year we show our replanting rate was higher than the year before. I think we reached around 3.3% compared to 2 point something in 2024. And this is very important for a long-term strategy for us to make sure that our oil palm will still become what we call productive in the long term. And also we have to see as I mentioned about labour situation. Alhamdulillah, I think currently the labour is much better, but we also have to consider, another factor which is also important is the weather condition. We also have to predict, maybe last year we are not too bad, so there may be monsoon, maybe some condition. You may be having high rainfall or maybe long dry period. So this may also come in and may affect your yield.
I want to zoom in slightly to the situation of smallholders in our palm oil markets. Now, one thing that surprised me was that smallholders comprise around more than a quarter of our palm oil production. Now, can you walk us through how smallholders will probably be affected in the transition to replanting and revitalizing our palm oil markets in the coming year? How is that going to affect the small farmholder?
Yeah, I think they are very important. It's very vital for the smallholder because, as you correctly mentioned, basically they are around 27% of the planted area actually by smallholders. Both we have the organized smallholder like Felda, Felkra, Rizda and whatnot, and also we have around 240,000 independent smallholders. So they are all consuming, or basically they are covering around 27%. So it's more than a quarter of our planted area and production are coming from smallholders. And it's very important because these are their livelihood. And for them, replanting is very important. Because currently from our data, we know it's around 10% of our smallholders' crop are more than, or basically above 25 years. So they are really old and they need to be replanted. But of course, to do replanting is not easy. Because most of them, once the palm are above 25 years old, very tall, it's not economical to harvest and whatnot. But to do replanting also is quite costly. Because there will be 3 years without yield.
Talk to me about the labor implications for this. I mean, you're saying that since we are replanting a substantial portion of our palm oil in the coming year, palm trees, more like it, how will labor be affected at that? Now, I understand that a good substantial percentage of the Malaysian palm oil laborers are foreign individuals, right? We hire foreign individuals to work the fields. Talk to me about how labor markets may shift, especially in the palm oil market, given the transitions that might happen in the next coming few years.
I think we're talking about replanting. We are talking about 4 to most 5% of replanting rate. So if you only have like 4% of the planted area being affected, the labor that been used to harvest and whatnot will go to the other not to the other sector, but still within the oil palm industry. Because currently they are still not 100% resolved the labor situation. So I think if we can start planting, going to like 4% replanting, I think the labor that available will still be around, and they still have a lot of work to be done. But the most important I would like to highlight is for the smallholders. Because when we want them to do the replanting, because at least you go now with the new planting material, better yielding, better seed quality, and also I think we want to make sure that we don't open new land. We still keep the same land and do replanting. And also I think this is very important, sustainability. But the cost, currently some of the reluctant smallholders because they don't have the money. Because the first 3 years they have no income. So what government is doing for the past 3 years, in 2024 government has allocated 100 million ringgit. Last year 50 million, this year 50 million for us to do replanting. So basically these smallholders in Peninsula, they are provided with a loan of 14,000 per hectare. In Sabah and Sarawak around 18,000 per hectare, and up to 6.5 hectares. So these people, when they take the loan, they will do the replanting, and they will only start paying back only 50%. So it's more like a matching grant. So they only pay back 50% starting year 5. So when they already start getting fruit and starting getting some income.
I want to zoom in more a bit about the innovations and technology around seed quality and the science around palm oil. But before that, well, we talked about the dip in production volume over in the coming year, but we are still projecting a solid 15.8 to 16 million tons that will result in slightly around 110 billion in revenue. Can you talk us through about what is driving the demand right now, and what do you think are going to be the emerging markets for palm oil in the coming year? Now, we know India, for example, is our #1 export market. There's followed by China, and there's also certain countries in Africa. Talk to me about what might change in the coming year. There is a broad market volatility. There is, global trade is experiencing a shock after the various international events in the past few months. Walk us through how is that going to affect palm oil?
I think, last year, our export value is around 112 billion ringgit. Despite our this lower volume of export, due to actually last year why we lost a lot of market is partly because of palm oil price was very high. In fact, I think from somewhere in middle 2024 to around May 2025, palm oil price was higher than soybean and also sunflower. It's never happened in the history before. So many markets like China, certain India, Pakistan also start shifting into other oil, which affect our export last year was lower. But because of the higher price, our export value is higher compared to the volume. But we coming back, I think currently we can see actually our export in December and in January this year also start increasing, even in EU, because people are restocking and whatnot. So basically, I think, as you mentioned, India is still important. India, China and whatnot. But countries like Tanzania, like Vietnam, and we're talking about even, Philippines, also buying a lot. So that means there are many countries that, we have to basically focus and try to go into as many countries as possible, highlight the importance of palm oil, the sustainability of palm oil, the health benefit of palm oil. So we need to, even our Central Asia market, there are a lot more market that we need to go and tell them about the benefit.
A very quick one. I know you said that we talked about this where the price of palm oil is quite inelastic in nature, but you have projected that crude palm oil prices will likely land between 4,000 and 4,300 per ton this year. Walk us through very quickly about what is going to push this price either up or down. How do we know what the factors are in terms of pricing this very important commodity of Malaysia?
Right. Last year, our stock at the end of December was 3.05. And the price is still stable until now, around 4,000 ringgit. As compared to 2018, when our stock was 3.22 million ton, our price was around 1,800. So this time, why the higher stock above 3 million does not really affect our price? It's because of the demand and also uncertainty. Of course, the most important uncertainty is you're talking about Indonesia. Indonesia actually is doing a lot of, they are planning even last year to increase to B50. Now they are B14 to biodiesel. They are talking about going to B50, which has now been postponed. But at the same time, government of Indonesia also start, managing some of the estate belong to the companies which were taken, was reported as illegal and whatnot. So this, when the taking over of certain more than 1 million hectares also cause fear that the productivity will be affected. So, and also I think we're talking about the price of soybean oil, Brent oil are all improving. So looking at all this condition, that means we can say that our price are very stable around
right, and we have to consider what the competitors are for palm oil is. And I want to get more into that and a broader zoom out for the overall market. But we're going to go for a short break, and when we come back, I want to zoom in to about competition, collaboration, and export markets in particular. Don't go anywhere. We're going to look that into when we come back with Datuk Ahmad Parveez. Welcome back. We are talking about palm oil with the Director General of the Malaysian Palm Oil Board, Dr. Ahmad Parveez. Now, we've been speaking about what is the national outlook for palm oil and its prices in 2026. Now, I want to zoom out into the global market as a whole. Now, there is one big question on everyone's mind is about the EU and the EUDR and the deforestation regulation. Now, historically, in the past few years, I think the ad, remember about from the EU about the orangutan, and there seems to be a demonization of palm oil in the EU markets. Now, it does seem, we all know that there's a conversation about the hypocrisy around the EU, in particular about exporting burdens onto developing markets, especially around environmental protections. Now, we do know that the EUDR has postponed applications for its process up to the end of this year. Walk us through what that process is going to look like. How is that going to affect our ability to export to these markets, especially for not just the EU, but what are norm settings that are going to happen across the world?
Actually, we know EU, they always put a lot of conditions to protect their own crop. They have their rapeseed, they have their soybean, they have their sunflower to protect. Whereas palm oil, as a one of the competitor, which they are very afraid and putting all these conditions. Basically, I think what they are doing is just to protect their own crop. But you look at EUDR, this is the second time they are postponing. And we look, even in 2024, we already have companies like Malaysian companies are saying, okay, we are already ready. We are already exporting to comply with EUDR. The issue is that whether the EU is ready. They are not ready. That's why this is the second time they are postponing. We have to look at, they have 7 commodities they are dealing with. Palm oil, soybean, coffee, cocoa, timber, and then you have the what they call the meat products. So all these 7 products basically are not produced, are not main produce of their country, the European Union. And putting all this condition with the due diligence report, with the polygon, and a lot of these like soybean, coffee, cocoa are produced by the small growers. How you expect these people to comply? And without complying this, how you enter into EU? Whereas we in Malaysia, we are doing our very best. Therefore, most of our big players are ready. In fact, we at MPOB, we developed a system to track. In fact, we are now making the map or the polygon for each of our individual smallholders. So we want to make sure our whole market, our whole Malaysian palm oil will be ready to go into EU with whatever they want, as far as this area is not being deforested after 31st December 2020. So we are doing our very best, whereas on their side, they are not ready. So we really hope that means they have to look again about their condition, asking other third world countries to comply. If they cannot comply, are they going to really stop this product from coming into their country? Are they going to reduce the income, the intake of their cocoa, their coffee? So many chocolates have been produced in Europe. So they are going to be affected. So I really hope that while we are doing our very best to comply. But we really hope they will be more modest, maybe more forward-looking to reduce the requirement, to make it more simpler.
Yeah, because over-regulation, I think, particularly hurts the earlier value chain in the commodity supply chain, right?
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask a bit about what is the Malaysian government's approach to what it's really tackling discrimination against palm oil. Now, we know that it's being called a dynamic trade diplomacy strategy. What does that strategy actually look like, and how is the Malaysian government going to likely approach its negotiations with both the EU and different markets, especially around allegations of discrimination of deforestations?
Yeah, I think we've been always talking about SDG, Sustainable Development Goal. We're talking about sustainability. The oil palm industry can run away from sustainability. We have our certification. I mean, in 2017, the government made what we call a pledge to make it mandatory for all the oil palm that we produce in Malaysia starting in year 2020 to be produced sustainably, and we are doing that. And of course, our MSPO certification is ready to help and to make sure that now, in fact, starting in 2025, with the Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil 2.0, with the revision, now the whole supply chain, even the dealers who are buying the fruit and selling to the millers, all have to be comply with the sustainability requirement.
Now, speaking of cooking oil, now we know that there's an official used cooking oil reference price that's going to be rolled out in 2026. Yeah. Can you tell us about what that's going to look like, and how is that going to actually affect the biofuel and downstream chemical industries, and what regulation should we expect in 2026?
I think this is really, we hope to become a game changer, because now there's no reference price for UCO. I mean, because it's currently is a willing seller, willing buyer. But now what we want is that, of course, sometimes there's also open for manipulation. People might just, take advantage of the situation. Food doesn't know the price, might be given a very low price. So basically what we're going to do is that it's a strategic structural reform of the Malaysian waste-based food, what we call feedstock market. We would like to make sure that, it's a more structured and transparent market. There's a lot of used cooking oil being collected in the country, and there's a lot of this going into EU, and there's a lot now. We know we have our new EcoCeres in Pasir Gudang. They are producing the sustainable aviation fuel. They're going to use the palm oil, effluent, and also the used cooking oil. So the demand for used cooking oil is going to increase, and for not only for biodiesel but also for what you call sustainable aviation fuel. So there's a lot of demand, and currently what we are doing is that we want to make sure that we will come out with this what we call the price of or more a reference price. It's not a mandatory,
right? But
because all our used cooking oil collectors, when they buy and they sell, they need to report to MPOB. So we will have a reference price, so people will know whether if the price, if we put a price of the reference price like RM3.50 per kilo, so people will only sell around that price. Otherwise, they might be cheated.
And it's not just Malaysia that's going down this route, right? I'm sure many different economies and markets are also doing that. Now, I do want to also just highlight a recent delegation visit that you received from Papua New Guinea, where you talked about R&D and technological transfer. How do you think MPOB is seeing this view of partnerships, and how is that going to materialize into actual real advantages for the Malaysian palm oil industry? What can we expect from these relationships when we see it in the news?
Yeah. It's a good opportunity when we have the minister from Papua New Guinea came to MPOB and came to Malaysia, and we have a long discussion with them. So basically, one thing, at least they recognize us as the major producer and also in terms of leader in the R&D. So when we discuss, we tell them that they have the interest to expand their oil palm planter area, but there are a lot of challenges. So that's why we say we offer them opportunity with technologies and even guidance about processing and whatnot, including sustainability. If they would like to have their own regulatory system, they want to have their own sustainability. So to me, it's a good way. Then we would like to, when they come in, we also would like to make sure that they're also sustainable. So if we don't want any new country to come in, and start producing palm oil in a large quantity, but does not follow all the requirement. I mean, you don't care about sustainability, you are now damaging the image of palm oil.
And on MPOB's side, what are the most exciting innovation pushes that your team is rolling out in 2026? Is it AI? Is it a labor market reform? What is the technological leap that we may expect in 2026?
Oh yeah, I think there are many. We've been what we call doing a lot of what we call R&D, and of course I think like last year we in 2025 we introduced our 2 years ago we introduced our our what we call transformer oil to be used for normally it's from petroleum, now we use from palm oil. So there's a lot of effort in terms of using latest technology AI. Like last year we introduced what we call a technology that you can detect the ripe oil palm fruit. Currently, because when the palm is too tall, if the harvester is not very experienced, they might be harvesting the wrong bunch. So if they harvest the young bunch, the old bunch will be there 2 weeks later will be overripe. And the bunch that you harvest is young, then it's unripe, so you get less oil. So in order to detect the ripe bunches, we develop a technology that you can actually detect using, and this is basically using AI to do machine learning, and we also moving into more like biolubricant. So previously we only know palm oil for food, while we are doing a lot of work in terms of producing what we call innovation for food using red palm oil, using vitamin E, but also now we are using on oleochemical side, lubricant, grease, cheese. You're talking about food, and you're talking about, I mentioned just now about transformer oil. So we are going into more like downstream, into newer
products,
areas, which will give you higher value.
Now, with all these exciting advancements, for the market watchers and investors watching this, how do you conclude the Malaysian palm oil industry threading the needle between growth, innovation throughout 2026? How do we see this market holistically, and what are the main walkaway points that we should have after today?
Yep, thank you. I think basically for us, I think currently we are blessed for the past 3-4 years with good price. Basically, industry are happy. We just heard UP made a lot of money last year also from the industry. I can't remember the figure, but basically everybody are happy because of the good price. So what is important is actually is the time for us, while we are maintaining our sustainability, while we are maintaining our market, it's also important for us to further improve our productivity. It's the time for us to invest into innovation, mechanization. We want to see, while we are depending a lot on foreign labor, so we hope most of our industry players will invest more of their profit into mechanization, go more into automation, and reduce the dependence on labor, especially foreign labor. And also, I think it's also important to also invest in replanting, plant with the good planting material. I think there's a lot of research. There are many big companies, they come up with their own planting material, while MPOB also have their own. So I think it's a time for us to seriously think, not to be complacent. Whoever need to do replanting, do the replanting. It's the right time to do replanting. Of course, the price is good, but you have to do replanting. And we also have to go more into innovation and go into machine, mechanization, automation.
Innovation, mechanization, automation. These are 3 words I'm taking out away. Thank you, Datuk, for your time today. I think we are all walking away with a bit more insights into the palm oil industry for 2026. Looking at the bigger picture as the global market continues to shift all around us with both injections and instability, palm oil will have to be resilient and adapt in order to remain competitive. Thank you so much, Datuk, for your time today. I'm Jason Wee. Thanks for watching Bernama The Nation. We'll catch you next time, and tune in to keep on with the most up-to-date insights.